Hey, this is Araxnus.
Starlight, Ironhoof.
Forest Rain.
And Zeta Prime.
And this is Elements of Harmony.
Tonight on the show, we introduce ourselves and explain exactly what this show is and what it brings to the Everfree Network. As well, our guest tonight is the very talented and very animated Cyril the Wolf, Brony musician, multi-instrumentalist, and frequent performer at cons all over the United States. Cyril blends his unique voice, rock and guitar riffs, and epic funky bass together in tracks that can only be described as epically metal. But first, an introduction to who we are.
Hi, we are Elements of Harmony, and this is a 1-hour interview show produced for Everfree Network, featuring artists within the pony fandom, both rising and renowned. Hi, I'm Starlight Ironhoof, one of the hosts of Elements of Harmony. I have been playing music for about 16 years now, started off as a classically trained musician on trumpet, and for about my whole life I've been involved in choirs and singing. I got into music because my entire family has been very musical. They all sing, been playing instruments, and really my dad was the first one to inspire me when he would play Led Zeppelin on guitar. And now I'm going to pass it off to Araxnus.
Hey guys, it's Araxnus. I'm a club DJ, about 11-year experience, and for the past 5 years I'm working for the LX nightclub in Las Vegas, Nevada. Before I did that, I used to live in Los Angeles and DJ weddings out there. That was pretty fun for a few years, but I decided I wanted to move to Vegas and work for some clubs. You guys might know me from the Everfree Network chat. I also do music posts on the network. What that means is I cipher through some of the new music in the community and post it up on the website for you guys to hear. I like a variety of music from electronic to rock to classical and orchestral. That's not about me. Here's on to Zeta Prime.
Hey guys, this is Zeta, aka Zeta Prime, and just kind of go back into the past. My experience with music kind of started out with my father. He played in a lot of punk rock and Christian rock bands, starting in like the 70s during high school, and kind of moving on from then and all the way up until I was about 5 years old. Then after that, he had to get a real job. But, you know, that's where my love of music began, was with my father. Watching him play the drums. Anytime I see any of my friends playing a musical instrument or doing anything musical, you know, it just makes me smile, and I love to see that. I've played the cello since about 5th grade is when I first began it. So I've got about almost 8 years of experience playing the cello. I also play the drums. I learned from my father because he was the drummer in his band. And about early in 2011, about January, is when I joined the Brony fandom. And it kind of went on from there. Eventually, I wanted to meet more Bronies, so I started joining conventions. And so I do a lot of programming stuff. I'm currently head of programming for Midwest Brony Fest. I'll be working programming for BronyCon, and I'll also be working programming for Clazo Congress. So I kind of take things from more the production side of music, though. But that's enough about me. Now on to Forest Rain.
Yeah, so I'm Forest Rain. A lot of you might know me from the pony community as a pony musician and behind tracks like Hey Ms. Derpy, Great to Be Different, or the Massive Smile Project. Lots of fun things like that. Performed at a few conventions down in the States and over in Vancouver, British Columbia, and Canada. I've had basically a musical background since very early childhood, where I started kind of tinkering on piano. In middle school, I started playing the French horn. I went to a special arts high school where I majored in instrumental music, vocal music, and drama. And from there, I went on to college. I did a little bit of professional voice acting. And in college, I studied recording arts technology, which covers elements of production from film sound, Foley, post-production, location audio, and music production. and I just kind of rolled with that. It's kind of been something that that played a large part in the stuff I produced for the Pony fandom. Yeah. So just to expand on the show itself, I know Starlight read the advertising copy right off the top there.
Yep.
But I just wanted to get everybody's sort of point of view on this show. Like, for me, this show is an opportunity to meet interesting musicians within the fandom and sort of get at the heart of what inspires them in their tracks and what kind of interesting things they have, like interesting stories or interesting techniques they have behind the music that they produce. But for any of you, what's your driving force for this show, or what was your inspiration for wanting to come on?
Since I know Infinite and I both kind of started it at the same time, when we kind of clashed into each other and then conjoined. But when I was thinking about coming up with this show, it originally was inspired from the fact that I was trying to find a way, somehow to support a lot of the musicians who, either don't get the kind of respect and, fame, I guess you could say, that they might deserve or should get and whatnot. And the musicians who probably would love to go to conventions and things like that, but they're not well known or whatever.
So they're not noticed as easily by the convention heads and stuff like that.
Yeah, and so my whole goal was to find some way to kind of bring out the best of some of the smaller musicians and help bring them into the spotlight.
My inspiration, I drove down to Alabama, met up with Infinite. He told me he needed me to do this, so I did. There we go. End of story. No, I'm just kidding. Jokes aside. What really inspired me to get on here is, as some of you know, I work for BronyCon, and for BronyCon 2014, I'm going to be working on the Brony Palooza team. And I feel like if I'm working for such a high event within the music side of the fandom, I really need to be much more respectful of the musicians that we're trying to draw in and learn much more about them. And as Zeta was talking about, just really explore the lesser knowns and hear where all this music's coming from. I already have been listening to the fandom music since January 2011, and I just find myself completely blown away with every time I hear these musicians that I never even heard of, even though I've been at this for a couple years now. And so I just found this a great opportunity to meet those musicians, help bring them out, and just learn more about them.
My inspirations was to give the fandom more exposure, certain musical artists, and the elements that go into the songs, and their just inspiration on to make the piece and how they feel while making it, basically.
Cool. All right, so now that you guys know a little bit more about us, take a listen to this.
That was some selections from Cyril the Wolf's new album, just released a few days ago, entitled Sands of Time. We'll be playing a few tracks from the album throughout the show. And with that, this is Cyril the Wolf.
Hey.
How's everything? Hello.
Hey, sir, how's it going?
Not too
Hey,
bad.
Cyril.
Doing things. It's Thursday. This is being recorded on a Thursday. Now you know.
Oh God, everything's revealed. How'd you like my little intro I wrote for you?
It made me feel good. I am not exactly what I would call the most self-aggrandizing person in the world, unless it's as a joke. So it's kind of nice hearing somebody just be like, "Yeah, this guy's awesome."
Yeah, well, I don't know if I included this in the intro, but you recently did that big thing that musicians do, Woodstock.
Oh yeah, I played at Woodstock. Yeah, that was,
Yeah, you freaking played at Woodstock. You're like one of the only. I think you're probably the only Brony musician who has played at Woodstock.
That's true. Probably, but it's all about. I mean, you play in bands for long enough, and you just kind of get the opportunities as they come. I mean, I'm really just a hired gun for that band. I mean, I'm not part of the writing process at all, other than the bass lines I do, because they pretty much are like, do whatever you want. I'm like, so,
I don't think anybody knows what band you're talking about, though.
oh
Yeah.
right,
It's not really Brony related, but
No, I'm in a band called Way Down Whalers, released on Woodstock Records very recently. The album called State of the Union. It's really, rootsy jam rock with a classical twist, and I do some slapping on the bass, and I even quote a Sonic song in a bass solo on the song "My Girl." So if you go check it out, listen to "My Girl" and listen for some Sonic song. If you get what the song is, then you can get a cookie from me. Just message me on YouTube, and I'll give you a cookie.
Tell me, Cyril, what was the first instrument you used, and how'd you begin making music with that instrument?
That's an interestingly worded question, actually, because everybody's like, "What's the first instrument you play?" But you're asking me what the first instrument I used was.
the differences are so obvious.
No, they are, because. I mean, it's really what I first started using to create music. And I'm really trying to think if I started creating music on my saxophone or if I started on bass, because those are the two instruments that I really started with. But I actually think that I started everything I did on the saxophone. The first recording I ever released was something called Loopy in the Cosmos, and it promptly features my sax. Yes, I did play the bass on it, but it was really me playing sax over something. And I've written a bunch of things for sax. In fact, the first thing I ever wrote that was performed was a saxophone quartet. So,
And
Yeah.
when was that?
2006? No, 2005.
Oh, so not that long ago then. It wasn't like you were in middle school or anything.
Well, I was in 4th grade when I started playing the sax, but I didn't really start paying attention to doing anything with bass until 6th grade. And I didn't really start writing until probably, the 8th grade. I mean, and of course, I don't know if Canadian middle school is the same as our middle school, but 8th grade is is our middle school. And that's when I moved high schools in the 9th grade. And that was when the 9th grade was when my thing was performed. And it was definitely like 2004, 2005, somewhere around there. So that was the first, thing. And of course, I've been writing MIDI since like 2003, but that wasn't really an instrument. I literally just sat down at a computer and stuck things on a staff until they worked.
So, yeah, when you did start writing music, where did you usually like to draw your inspiration from?
Well, before it was just basically video game music. I really just wanted to compose video game songs. So it was like, oh, this is a battle theme, or this is the world theme, or this is the dungeon theme. In fact, actually, around 2007 or so, I wrote 4 dungeon themes for this MMO that never happened. So
Nice.
What was it called?
Actually, you know what? Just a second. Media Library, come to me.
Oh God.
Connor Pelkey, because that's my real name. Shh.
Now the world knows.
Now the world knows. I think the world already knew.
Our 200 listeners now know.
Oh my gosh. Guys. Damascus. It was called Damascus.
Okay.
That'd be
Oh, wow. Yep. Nope. The site's still there. Damascus, the Conflicted Kingdoms. Damascus.net. Look at that stuffage.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! If you go to the Media Music page, I'm still freaking there. That's before I had added the wolf to my name.
What?
Holy crud!
Since you just mentioned your name, I'm just gonna butt in. Where did you get Cyril from?
I was writing. I used to go by Icarus, actually. Ooh. On like everything, because I really liked that myth, and the song "Flight of Icarus" by Iron Maiden is awesome. I was writing a short story, and it was about Magic the Gathering, actually, using concepts from that, and the idea of like mana summoning. And it's like, okay, so I need a good name. So behindthenames.org, back when dial-up internet was everywhere, took like 15 years to like load. And of course, my name starts with a C, so I'm like, oh, C, and then Cyril is like, oh, that means Lord or hero. So I was like, oh, good, perfect, pro tag name. And then started using it because I don't know, I liked it. I had this weird head thing where I had two headmates, and one was me, one was Icarus, and one was Cyril. But that's a different story altogether, because I was just, in 8th grade and not knowing what I'm talking about. But yeah, no, Cyril is just the name I started using, and then I added the wolf on it.
All right, how did you start getting involved in the Brony fandom?
Well, a friend of mine dragged me in. And you can actually still see, if you go up to where I used to live, the claw marks that are deep in the asphalt from when I was being dragged into the portal to Equestria. I mean, somebody was just like, "You're gonna like this show, dude. You're gonna like this show." I'm like, I don't really feel like watching it. I'm too busy remixing stuff for OC Remix. And then he's like, "No, you're watching this episode." And of course, they spammed me with memes to the point where I was like, "Okay, fine." And so I wrote a parody song with that friend called BYOP, which is Bring Your Own Ponies by System of a Down. It was a System of a Down parody. And then as far as, and I always kind of was attracted to Luna. I've always kind of had a thing for the moon and wolves.
No,
and
really?
That sort of, shut up. And, and so, I have always had this thing against writing, for a long time anyway, very recently different, but I've always had this thing against writing I songs, as I like to call them, songs about me. This is how I feel. This is what I am. Emo. And so I had this dream where I felt really lonely, and so I wrote a song about Luna, Millennium Alone in the Moon, and such like that. And it sort of just opened the floodgates to everything else. And I started reading a lot of the fan fiction and a lot of the hand kittens, as Fallout Equestria, et cetera, et cetera. And you just sort of start deriving inspiration from things. Actually, there's a lot of songs. I wrote a song called Ursa Major, and it was, of course, based on Luna, the moon. But I mean, it's just one of those things where I just sat down. I was like, oh, I'm going to write an Ursa Major song. Why? Because it's a concept I can latch onto. So, you get just like a body of stars, all old and far, turns your glow from violet to blue, because actually, that's, I guess, it has to be reversed. Oops. See, I'm already looking at errors. I sat down and wrote. But, it was basically about the Ursa Major. As opposed to Ursa Major. And so it's just because of how detailed and nice the imagery was and how open the world was, it was very easy to just go off on tangents about whatever.
This is something I've noticed about you, actually, is that for you, writing lyrics and music comes really easily.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, has it always been that way? Or like, do you have a process for it or anything like that?
I maybe used to. I don't think I do anymore. I just kind of sit down. Like the song Lunar Cycle, which we can talk about later. I literally was like, oh, I need a song to cap off this concept. And so I sat down on Saturday and took like 3 hours and hashed it out, and it was done. And it was exactly as I wanted it, because I was like, this is simple. This sounds nice. And I was tempted to add more, but then like, as it came together with just the vocals, I always start with the basics. I always start with the vocals and acoustic guitar. If that is really, really good, then anything you add on top of it will make it even better. But sometimes, and I think especially in the case of that song, it would detract from it. So that's what happens too. So I always start with, either a melody or a chord progression, and then I just really build from there. And I always through compose my songs. That's I guess my process is, like, I sit down and I get it done. And once I get that done, then I procrastinate recording it.
With your music, have you ever been professionally trained for any of your music or your writings or anything?
Well, I mean, I took the saxophone I was taught in school. I took some music theory classes, kind of. I really taught myself mostly about music theory, just because I found it interesting, and I wanted to learn about modes and what scales would make which sound, and it's sort of always just been an exploratory experience for me, because music is kind of endless. Even though there are people like everything's been done. No, there's still different ways to approach things, and different people feel it different ways. So, you know, you can take one song and show it to a room of 100 people, and you know, there'll probably be at least 20 different ways it's interpreted. So,
yeah, that kind of goes with like all forms of art. It's all about interpretation.
But because of that, you know, I can journey into the world of a different scale and probably put it together in a way different way than any other person. In fact, I think I remember there used to be these games on vgmusic.com message boards where they would like literally be like, oh yeah, here, have this melody, everybody do something with it. And, you know, you take a melody and you do what you think it could be done with it. Long story short, no, not really professionally trained. I had training on the saxophone in high school, as much as that is professional training. But outside of that, everything else has just been kind of from my own internal drive to do what I do. So.
Just like, yeah, the fact that you just draw so much from yourself and that you've just kind of always been able to just like pour out all these amazing tracks and everything it's really impressive.
Well, I don't know. It's just once you tool around enough, and I mean, I just kind of been playing around for a long time, you get to where you hear things in a certain way. So like if I play 2 chords or 3 chords on a guitar, I kind of know where I want it to go from there. And once that part's done, I mean, that's for some people is the hard part, but for me, that's the easy part. Once that's done, then I have to put it together, and putting it together for a rock musician is as easy as, well, here's the rhythm guitars, and those take up a lot of space. And where are you going to put these rhythm guitars? Are you going to have extra stuff? How many vocal layers are you going to have? Do you really, really want to have vocal harmonies in this or not? Because honestly, sometimes vocal harmonies will just muddy it up. The really hard part to me is striking that balance as to what is too much production and what is enough production. Because too much and the song loses all its character. Too little and it sounds immature-ish. So.
From Cyril's new album, we're going to listen to a track called Lunar Harvest. That was Cyril's new track, Lunar Harvest. One of my personal favorites from the album. Right now, we are going to take some time and talk about some of the elements used in it.
I mean, it's not exactly a new track, but it was redone a little bit. But it was
helped.
Rushed. Yes, and Forrest, I mean, your tracks are still in there, that background, the backing chorus choir thing. But I mean, I rushed that so far hard. I rushed both the tracks I released for that season really far, partially because a nice little hurricane knocked out my power for 2 days. It was one of those things that just came together, but it was such a nice song that I didn't want to let it go. So I redid some of the vocals that I felt needed to be done, like the chorus, and I redid the guitar. Actually, I just layered on another guitar that complemented the guitar I already had, and it really pushed it to the next level to what you hear now. I also underlaid some like tracks, which are fun. Although one thing is I kind of mixed it back for reasons, but the very, very end, I'm actually doing a really high vocal part on the chorus. It's the highest thing, and it went so high that it actually turned into a scream anyway. So it really makes the last chorus really, really intense and really ending like I really wanted it to be in the very beginning. But the really creepy witch tracks that Forrest recorded, which were just basically like, nights, man, nights, weren't cutting it. Well, they didn't cut it, so I had to do this really ridiculous scream version. And it actually came really through because, I mean, we listened to it through the internet, which is in mono, and it really came out. And I'm like, oh, I remember recording that and how how much my abs really hurt after pushing out that much air.
Anyway, I'm gonna say that Rax has been adding music to EFN for a while and has been listening to stuff for a while. So, do you hear a difference from how Luna Harvest is now to how it was then? And specifically with this album, have you noticed like any kind of change between Cyril's sound from then to now?
In fact, I have, actually. The way everything is cut together, his vocal patterns from then and now, it's gotten a lot better. When I heard Sands of Time, the title track, I really like the vocals from that compared to, say, some of his older tracks like Night Night or Millennium Alone.
Oh, yeah. I've been working on my vocals for years and just getting them better and having better technique and sounding less like I'm eating something at the same time while recording, sounding less like I'm stuffed up. Pronouncing words correctly, being in tune. That's a big one. Actually, true facts, I didn't use Melodyne for almost any of these recordings. So I really worked hard to make sure that I was singing in tune far better. And at least, and some of my problem wasn't always singing in tune. Like Millennium Alone's got a big example of this. It was the way I was saying the words, because the way I was saying the words was actually making it sound like it was out of tune. Because, the difference between an and a or wait.
Yeah, I've noticed that Millennium Alone actually gets covered almost weekly by one of our musicians that does a show on Everfree Network. Sketchy Sounds covers that a lot.
He still covers it?
Yes, he does.
I love you, Sketchy. That song, honestly, is like one of the examples of why I think I'm not as quote unquote big in the fandom. Because I had the songwriting chops. I did not have the execution chops. But yeah, I've always been working on that because I've always been a fan of that music. And I had a friend, at first I was like, no, I'm just going to sing low and I'll just do what I do. And a friend of mine was like, no, man, anybody can sing high, pretty high at least, as long as they use the right technique. I mean, obviously I'm not going to be singing as high as a castrati anytime soon, but I can push my voices to a higher limit than most people can really think to. And in a way that most people don't. I mean, I like Andy. He's actually a really nice guy. But Mando Pony does a high register thing too. But his high register sounds a lot thinner. And it's definitely more of either a pure head voice or a falsetto.
It's more a falsetto mostly.
Yeah. The only exception would be he actually definitely put some more beef behind it when he did the last note in the Smile cover he did. Because he got that one pretty rocking.
I noticed your vocal range at the end of Lunar Harvest, actually.
Oh yeah, as I,
Right up there. Yep.
oh yeah, that was a little ridiculous. I was about between 5 and 10 feet away from the mic, just like really screaming and like and you're doing it right when it doesn't like feel anything in your throat. The rest of my body was shaking, but my throat was okay, and it was good because I mean I was trying to hit this note, and instead of coming out as a note, especially since I work, I talk a lot. It was toward the end of my recording session, so I'm just like I'm like it is night, and it just would come out as a scream rather than an actual note.
This reminds me of a story from BronyCon, not this year but last year, where we were talking about the Cyril miking position. Oh no, that might have been Cloudsdale Congress actually when we were doing
it was either Cloudsdale.
I think it was Cloudsdale when we were doing like the like the B party room or whatever when
oh right.
Yeah. And at one point we're like, yeah, we're gonna use the Cyril miking position, and we just stuck a mic like 8 feet from wherever the person was. Well, no, it was for you. Yeah, it was for you. So we stuck a mic 8 feet from you.
I think it was Big Apple PonyCon actually, because the night before we were doing the September cover, and I did that note, and like the entire room could hear it over the music that was being pumped through the sound system. And that's on recording. That's on my channel, and I'm just like, I don't need a freaking microphone. I'm Jack Black, bro. Like, no, it's good.
You did some collaboration with this new album too, right?
Yeah, this album actually has a lot more features on it because I realized that I finally got swallowed some of my pride because I really am a do-it-yourself kind of guy. I mean, searching was all me. I mean, I really wanted it that way. But I realized, hey, Forrest can do this a little better than me, or Calcos is the voice I need for this, and he's got a killer voice. Or Boschfire, please, help me out with these strings so you make them sound a little bit better than I have available to me. Skyline has a 7-string guitar. Made one of the tracks on my album, The Surrogate, which is hitherto unreleased, realistically, unless you happen to follow me on Newgrounds and heard the song Amorous Fatalism. Yeah, so.
All right, right now we're going to break for the title track from Cyril's new album, Sands of Time.
Time flows but leaves you behind, left with scars in your mind. Mercy doesn't leave a trace. You feel like you're simply a disgrace. External forces don't care who people are. The wheels of fate just do their part. The pattering of a sticky ring, the sound fills you with disdain. For yourself you fight tears of shame. You lose strength, cry against the window frame. External forces don't care who people are. The wheels of fate just do their part, tearing us all apart. Will all the pain, the memories remain? It doesn't mean that we're not just rain flowing in the sands of time. To die. No, we don't measure fate, we keep track of time. We sing away
When you cannot find your way in the day, you must seek your fortune in the night.
That was Sands of Time. It is the starting track of the story of Cyril's album. Why don't you take some time and tell us a little bit about that?
Well, there's not really. Okay, so first of all, that song was actually written like 7 years ago. The music was all MIDI, all composed right out to the dot. I have the MIDI file on my computer of the bass, the drums, everything of it. And I didn't really have a title for the song. In fact, this was before I really started adding vocals to my song. And I wanted to add vocals, but I didn't know what lyrics to write. And I just like, whatever. And so it just kind of sat on my computer, forgotten to the sands of time for a long time.
Very appropriate title then.
Yeah, it is in a lot of ways. And I did, so I wrote that song, the lyrics to Sands of Time, because I was like, I was in a bad mood after I, because I had been listening through some of my old tracks being like, man, I wonder if there's something that I could actually pull off now that I'm more experienced. And so this one was one of the ones that I wrote far beyond my years, I guess. And so I did it. And Kalkos being the second vocalist was just because like I really felt like it needed a different vocalist to start it off other than me, because my voice is a little too rough to sing what I wanted to sing in the way I wanted it to be sung. And he sung it really nicely and it came together perfectly. The piano itself, I don't know what, I think it was like a combination of Nobuo Uematsu and like Moto Sakuraba and Nightwish and stuff like that. So it was really just a conglomeration of my influences at the time. But I'm still like influenced by those people. It's just they don't listen to them as much at this point. I'm too busy listening to my own stuff. And and so that's where that came from, and it's really just one of those
I could
things.
see how Nightwish could be a great inspiration. I listen to Nightwish actually quite frequently nowadays.
Oh, nice. Marco Hayatella is one of my favorite vocalists, the male vocalist of Nightwish. He's great. Big inspiration of mine, honestly. And so I just really like the triplet feel, and I wanted an excuse to change keys. It was really an exercise in musical self gratification. And so I thought I'd bring that back, some of that self-indulgent progressive rockness that I love so much, because I was getting tired of just being straightforward and trying to write the most straightforward song. So I brought that back a little bit, and it kind of informed the rest of the album in a way, and how I put the rest of it together.
What kind of support network do you have in place for when you're taking on a project like this?
I honestly, like, other than people listening, I do everything myself. As far as a support network, it's a lot of work and it's a lot of emotional. I feel bad for my fiance sometimes because I am in here a lot, just working on it.
As you have been, musicking for a little while now, what tips do you have to people out there who are looking into getting into the business?
My tips are, I have a lot of hardware, so it's easy for me now. I mean, honestly, part of my improving process was getting better stuff. But just learn, man. It's like the reason I started doing what I'm doing, the reason I started for a long time, I've been doing this for a while, and keep improving and keep being driven is because to me, it's all learning. In that pursuit of just knowing more about your craft will actually improve you more than anything else. Like, wanting to know how to play a bass, how to sing, how to get that one wub, and not being afraid to experiment, and realizing that a lot of your experiments, much like the subhumans in Cheetah Men 2, will be failures.
That reference.
Quick clap for everybody who got that reference. That's for you. This is for you.
Yep. Slow clap.
Oh, and I have one more tip for artists that I think is really, really important. And this will probably be echoed every single time that you get somebody on this show. Believe in yourself, be proud of yourself, and don't let anybody get you down. Find the balance between that, which will drive you forward, and being so proud that you won't improve by people's suggestions.
Awesome. Next up, our tech discussion. Today we'll be talking about clipping.
Welcome back to the show, and now we are going to start talking about some of the more technical aspects of music with our interviewee, Cyril the Wolf here. Cyril, hi.
Hello. Well, okay, so technical aspects of music. Now, not many people know this, or they choose to actively ignore it, but when you do music, you usually have to use a lot of math.
No.
Or...
You just said the dirty word.
or... fancy mathematics, muddling the issues.
Clipping, because this is the bane of everybody.
Yes.
Anybody that does any kind of recording should know about clipping, and if they don't, then it's time to learn right now.
Clipping can get quite annoying. I've experienced that on lots of ends with lots of microphones at times.
Yeah, we're not talking about clipping hair, are we?
No.
It's basically when a sound band is too high and it hits the top of the spectrum, pretty much.
Sort of.
In a way.
So,
yeah.
okay, so imagine it like this. You have a frequency that's a wave, and that's represented digitally. So there's only so much space in the digital spectrum to represent this sound. So you can think of the digital spectrum sort of like a tunnel or a box. And sound entering into it needs to be smaller than the box in order to not clip. This is a very simplified version of this, but
yes.
But if you think about it, most recording done on a computer is done at, or at least most music is 44,100 hertz. So you have 44,100 ones or zeros to represent where the audio frequency is. So to simplify this, if the audio going into the box is too loud or too big, the box is going to cut the ends off of it. So it's going to go into the box as a nice sine wave or whatever it is, and it's going to come out as this harsh square wave. And I'm sure Cyril can elaborate on this a little bit to maybe make it clearer.
Yeah, it goes into the box. So you have something too loud that's going into the red. And it's going, the box metaphor is perfect. It comes out, and what ends up happening is because of the way digital is transmitted, instead of like a tape would just kind of start, simplifying the sound and kind of sounding gross, but not really that bad. Digital just kind of starts cutting it off like instantly. For every, and decibels, by the way, are the measure of loudness. So for every like decibel passed, it just starts turning into this, this distorted junk. And it's not even a square wave, because I like square waves when they're, square wavy and nice.
It's sort of a square wave. It cuts the ends off it, and it just becomes this flat bit that's maximum, like, because there's two sides of the audio spectrum. There's when the wave goes up, it's pushing the speaker cone out. When it comes down, it's pulling it in. So when it gets up there and it does this harsh line, it's literally just pushing your speaker out all the way, and that's what makes that sound. That's digital clipping. But
and digital clipping is particularly nasty just because of how mathematical it is. Like with magnetic tape, it's magnetic tape, so it's a little,
it has
you can
some
get away
give.
with it a bit more. Yeah, it has some give. But since it's math, and numbers do not lie, and they're awful things. It just kind of goes, like from instantaneously, and it always starts from the top too. So like a bass guitar getting distorted, actually, digital distortion won't sound as bad because of where it can sit in the mix. Because it's so low, only the top part of it gets distorted, and the low part just kind of stays okay. Whereas a voice or anything with any sort of higher stuff will just start turning into crap instantaneously. And that's clipping. Of course, if you have a sine wave, the sine wave, and this is for things that aren't just sine waves. I've never clipped a sine wave, so I don't know what that would sound like, because a sine wave is so simple that literally there's no frequencies to cut other than the one that it's representing. So, So I don't know what that would sound like. I really don't want to know.
Anyway, to sort of sum up this discussion about clipping, let's talk about how you fix it. So
can't.
Well, no, you can't after it's recorded.
Oh, yes.
If you have something recorded that is clipped, you're done. Sorry.
Yeah, there's no way to fix that.
Yeah.
Yes.
However, if you find that you're in the process of recording and you're hearing this, the easiest way to fix it, turn your volume down, turn your gain down on your mic or whatever you're recording.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, you might not hear it as loudly as you want to hear it right now. That's fine. Bump up the volume later.
Yeah,
You
that
can
can
turn
be
it up.
fixed.
Yep.
So long as you're not altering the space any, because without getting too much into detail, if you're the farther you away from the mic, the more you'll hear the room, as evidenced by me backing up from my microphone, and you can hear my entire room echoing nicely.
Yeah.
And then if I get close, it's not there anymore. So
And for example, if I move up myself.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a whole other section we can talk about maybe next week or something like that about mic technique as well.
Yes.
that plays into it as well. And it's funny that Cyril brought that up because I remember P1K talking about recording himself, and he used to have this really crappy USB mic that he recorded on, and it was so sensitive that he had to stand about 4 feet away in order to record his voice, which is sort of what played into his vocal sound in his early recordings. And it worked for the Beatles Brony stuff. So yeah, and it's funny because if you're trying to emulate older recordings, you get a lot more leeway. If you're trying to emulate a newer recording, you don't, because everything is so scientifically controlled. And actually, there's a big movement now for going back to retro recording, because honestly, some new recordings, I mean, unless you're doing electronic music, of course, they kind of sound too sterile. And in fact, that's why I respect a lot of electronic musicians who go out of their way to kind of bring that human element into their music, which is why I like Goa, Psytrance, and certain elements of dubstep.
Yeah, like there's an element called modern talking. It's where you'll hear a bass note like it's kind of talking, really.
Right. And so that's, I mean, and people, go out of the way to do it without modern talking, because modern talking, unfortunately, has been sullied.
It has. This is true.
It's become the sound goodizer of
wavetables. Well, because
in a way, yeah.
Because modern talking can do a lot of other things, but everybody uses it for the yoy 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 yoy. So, but anyway, yes. So I don't want to say any more because as Forrest and I think said earlier, we could probably go on for days about this sort of thing. We could hold a series.
That is true. We could.
I think I'll just say that from a perspective of somebody who definitely doesn't know the super technical side of music and things like that, that it's all very interesting just to kind of hear all these different things that, you don't really think of at first when you think of a song and you hear it. You don't think of all the math and all the science really that kind of goes into music making, and it's all very interesting to kind of all learn this.
Yeah. And on that note, that's the kind of thing we're going to explore with this show in coming weeks too. Like next week, it's going to be mostly talking about. I think we're looking at electronic music right now for next week's show. So we're gonna sort of focus on that and just kind of do a little bit more of this kind of stuff too. So if you're of the technical mindset or you want to learn a little bit more about the technical stuff that goes on behind the songs within the Brony fandom, tune in next week as well. But yeah.
And one thing I'd like to just real quick cap on. The reason this is stuff, we talked about this stuff, is because it's good to at least know it, even if knowing and understanding this stuff makes everything easier. It really, really does. So it might sound confusing, but later on you'll be like, I
thought you told me I don't need to know it.
Except unless your name is Starlight Ironhoof.
Yeah, unless your name is Starlight.
Yeah.
Then you probably want to know it.
I do want to know it.
We were saying earlier too that we couldn't bring Starlight into the interview with you, Cyril, because he sounds too much like you.
God, what? No, he does not.
Yes,
Shut
he does.
Up.
Yeah, he
You're
totally
stupid.
does.
Who else was saying that? Cyril. Someone else was telling us that.
Everybody else in any calls we've been in, they're like, "Oh, I don't know why, but you and Starlight have the same vocal." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Hey, that boosts your singing at least.
That's true. Wait, what?
But
you know what? We'll continue this discussion at another time, Mr. Ironhoof.
Another show.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
that airs on Tuesday nights.
Good plug. All right. So once again, Cyril, thank you so much for being on our show.
Yeah, sure.
And we look forward to bringing you back to discuss more technical things in the future, because I'm sure we will. Yes. All right. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning into our pilot episode. And thanks again to Cyril the Wolf for coming on and talking about his new album, Sands of Time. Go check it out on Bandcamp. We have links. We hope you enjoyed yourself, and hope you tune in next week as we explore more of the intricacies of electronic music and what goes into a wub. Until then, this is
Starlight, Ironhoof,
Araxnus.
Zeta Prime.
and Forest Rain signing off.